Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got some disassembly for you as well as a first impressions, some first impressions at the end on these two knives right here. These are both the same model of knife, although they are slightly different versions. This one is a full titanium, this one is a G10 construction. This is a full titanium Demko Knives AD-20. And before we go any further, I want to talk real quick about the locking mechanism, because that's the new thing here, right? To unlock the knife, to open the knife, all you do is you pull the blade out. And then this little shark fin in the back here pops forward and locks the knife in place. To unlock the knife, you just pull back on the shark's fin. And there you go. Knife is unlocked. Right now, there is no play in either direction on this guy. This guy has been carried, not a fair amount. It's been carried for basically a full day, but flipped a whole bunch in that time. This guy is more or less factory fresh. But because these are very different materials and very different knives, I figure I'll do both disassemblies here, just to see what the differences, if anything, look like between the full titanium and otherwise. Centering was good, action was good, no real concerns here. Nice big beefy pivot screw on this guy. And by the way, looking at it, T12 there, and then it looks like T10 for the main pivot, T8 for the back screws here. And by the way, I'm taking out these screws because the back ones are involved in the clip. And so, hopefully, be able to take this guy apart. These are basically factory fresh. Like I said, this one got a day worth of carry. But I bought these guys both from the Demko folks themselves. And they, are coming from there. Okay, how do I pop this guy apart now? A couple of big questions here. Because I unfortunately have sort of a flip-flop disassembly situation here, I'm going to use my spudger tool to see if I can't pop the back spaces loose here, but the tolerances are relatively tight. Can I pop it loose on this end? Wow, this is very tightly put together. Okay, oh, there we go. We got a little tiny bit of movement there. That's something. Maybe if I close the blade, that'll take some of the tension out of the system here. Let me get in here a little bit more. Frankly, this knife without screws is more structurally sound than a lot of knives I've had on my table with them. That's good. One would kind of hope, though, because it's a... Oh, was that my tool breaking, or was that the titanium popping a little bit? I mean, there are so many pins in this guy. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, yeah, this is going to be a little tricky here. Can I pop this? Okay, so I have loosened it very slightly. That's a start. Maybe my foolishness was in assuming that I could do this without removing the screws on the backside. That will make it a little bit easier because there will be a little less torsion involved. So we'll go ahead and we'll put those guys over here. And by the way, if you're ever curious about any of the tools I'm using on the channel for disassembly, go ahead and check out nickshabazz.com/tools. You'll see a full listing of every tool I use during this or any other disassembly. It's a beautiful thing. So this will then give me loose the... Oh, I'm arranging my screws in the order I took them off. One thing that is worth noting, I just noticed here, is that the clip side screws are a little bit longer than the show side screws. And so, at least where the clip is involved. That makes sense, given that the clip has a thickness to it. But still, that's one thing that could be problematic for you if you weren't anticipating it. Okay, let's try. Okay. It appears that I did actually need to take off the clip here in order to get this guy apart, because now it's wanting to come loose. And again, that sort of makes sense. You want to have all of your movement on one side of the equation here. Okay, now we just got to pop this side loose. It is nice to have a spudger tool like this, because the spudgers are going to... Maybe I should be doing it with the lock partially disengaged. Yeah, there we go. This is not going to injure the titanium in any meaningful way, so that's good. All right, and now I just got to pop loose on this end here. Come on. So you can see here that we've lifted out. That maybe wasn't what I needed to do, but that's okay. I just need to pop loose over here now. There we go. Beautiful. And we are basically there. All right, come on. he says optimistically. There we are. Whoa, okay. So, let's go ahead and take a look at how this lock functions real quick. As we are running on bearings. That's interesting. So this will give us a sort of a tutorial of the shock lock here. Oh, the post is separate from the standoff. That's interesting. Okay, so we can go ahead and reseat that. Wow, that's a nice fit. All right, whatever. I'll leave you there for the moment. I don't need to fight that. When this knife is closed, to open it, you pull it back like this. This gives the blade some room to move, right? Then, once the knife shuts again, this whole thing snaps into position, and we are effectively, the blade is held in place by this little protuberance here, which seems to effectively function as a stop pin. At this point, the blade is, this titanium spacer here, everything is in alignment, so this can't really move up or down too very much. And by the way, this whole thing is being tensioned by a spring, which I gather would go right in here, because this spring is going to, actually, I can probably seat it in there real quick for this demonstration. We'll make things just more compelling. Come on, get in there. Go to your home. There we are. Okay, so now when we unlock the knife, here, I'll do it this way just so it's easier for me to... Yeet goes the spring. All right, where'd that spring go? This is going to be fun. Oh, here it is. Hey, that was nice. I heard it bounce off the wall next to me, but... Okay, so we're going to not have the spring in position, because that wasn't stellar. But I'm going to... Any that's not even a thing. We are starting off with the knife in its closed position. Then when you unlock it, what it does here, and I'm simulating spring tension using my finger pressing in this direction. What seems to happen here is that this is forced backwards. This provides our detent. Then at a certain point, oh, I see. At a certain point, the slope changes, and we go into this little area here, which gives us the extra clearance. And then once we get past this point, everything slides back into place and then hugs the bottom of the blade right there. So that's effectively your lock face. I figured it was touching higher up there, but it doesn't seem to be. And there appears to be a little bit of extra, basically, place in the system to account for wear over time. Interesting. All right, and so basically this tension here, and then when you unlock the knife, you are pulling it back and allowing this to come up. Okay, so it's not that there's play in most of the time. It's just that there is this vertical movement when you pull it back. Okay, that's what I've been feeling. All right, so that's how your shock lock works. It's connecting right down here, and then when you close it, coming back down into here. Nice. It's pretty elegant. It's actually, in some ways of functioning, it's not so dissimilar from like a sliding bar style lock as you see in like the Axis lock or something like that, but it's the implementation is very different, and it doesn't rely on a coil spring. On a omega spring. Relies on that kind of thing. So that's a little easier. Let's go ahead and lift off the little shocky dude. That's the technical term for this piece right here, the little shocky dude. Just, in case you're talking to the Demkos and you want to, seem like an expert, just say that. No, do not say that. All right, and let's go ahead and lift off the blade here and clean everything out. One thing I do see, aside from very tight tolerances, is, and backspaces everywhere, I'll just take those out too, is that there is a fair amount of, like the sides of this, and it would make sense that this is a part that will wear a little bit because it's getting sort of pinched into place here, and it's moving titanium on titanium. So, yeah, this part will probably get polished off over time, so that's good. 17 or maybe 11, maybe 14-4 pH. I don't know what pH is, but who knows? All right, but we see here some of the residue from the titanium that's been moving already. Go ahead and clean that off there. And, yeah, this whole thing should polish off. Oh, see here already, we're seeing some of the polishation. That's not a word, by the way. I'm full of those today. Polishing, I suppose, would be the proper nominalization, if you will, turning into a noun of that particular idea. Anyways, but we see some of that polishing on the sides of this guy already. Go ahead, clear this out. Cleanity clean this. There we go. And cleanity clean this. Beautiful. Beautiful. And beautiful. All right. And there is a steel washer, and this whole thing is running on bearings. And that's actually kind of interesting, I'll be honest with you. I'm used to Demko, meaning, oh my God, hard use, that kind of thing. And this is, bearings are not what you conventionally associate with super hard use. And so if you're looking for something that is, just a knife you're going to be brutal to, maybe the bearing choice isn't the one that you would necessarily want, but at the same time, it works. And honestly, it's easy enough to clean up and clean out that I'm not super worried about it. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of nano oil here. Is what I'll use for lubrication. Right onto this. Oh, I should clean my bearings as well. There we go. Using a little rubbing alcohol here. Clean those off. And clean these off. Although it looks like a lot of the grittation, if you will, was coming from the titanium bar sliding along there. Oh, and also I'll clean off this surface of the blade here. There's a little bit of grit up in there, too. Interesting. Oh, and then this provides a backward stop pin for the blade as well. Neat. So Demko Knives, Andrew Demko, is actually a designer that is much better known than I think many people know. Or at least people who are relatively new to the community, because Demko Knives is also a principal designer, if not the principal designer for Cold Steel. Who we are well known for, and he is the inventor of the Triad lock. Triad lock, of course, being sort of a modified back lock, whose marketing claim to fame, at the very least, is that it is one of, if not the strongest lock in existence. CPM 20CV written on there, okay, and again 20CV written on the top there. It's blade labeling on the cheap, but that's okay. So, yeah, Demko is sort of, although I've actually been a fan of Demko's work. I, owned the custom AD-15. The AD-15, of course, being this guy with the scorpion lock. You lift it up and out of the place there. I've been a Demko fan for a while now, and but a lot of his stuff has been sort of a little bit more big beatery, badassy sorts of stuff rather than the light and svelte sort of things that I'm normally after in my life. But you know what? Different grinds for different kinds. So one thing we do see is no pocketing here. This is not designed to be lightweight in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, it is a beast. This knife is the most ridiculous knife I own at this present moment, at least for many definitions of ridiculosity. Ridiculosity? That's not a word. Oh, man, I'm having a day, aren't I? But okay, let's go ahead and drop this in place. Yeah, this is the proper positioning. What I'm going to go ahead and do is actually apply a little bit of oil to the back side of the titanium here. Because this is a moving part, and because it's sliding against the scales here, I want to make sure that that sliding is going to be reasonably lubricated. And I'll also apply just a little bit to this surface here. There we go. And actually, I should do on the inside as well. I'm probably over-lubricating. Nick Shabazz, over-lubricating. It's more likely than you think. All right. And here we go. And here we go. Beautiful. Okay, so now what I need to do is to reinstall this spring such that it will yeet itself across the room yet again next time I manipulate the knife. Or, better still, such that it won't. There we go. Whoa there. Springy. Yeet. All right. The spring has been yachting. Let's go ahead and try this one more time, but this time hopefully without so much yeeting. All right. Come on. Come on. There we go. Stay. Stay. Good spring. Okay. There's that. There's this. And there's this. That's right. This doesn't quite want to seat itself. There we go. It is reasonably seated. Okay, now what I'll do is I will apply just a little tiny bit here. There's no detent ball or anything like that, so I don't have to worry about that. And I can just drop this whole thing. Do I have all the pins in place? I do. Okay, drop this whole thing into position in this way. Okay. And snap things back together. Beautiful. Okay, now I got about 50 screws to reinstall. Turns out I didn't have to take off the screws on this side at all. So, you know what? Let me go ahead and do that first, just to clear things up. I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of blue thread locker on this guy. No problem. That is the backmost screw. I have my screws organized just off the mat in terms of where they came off of the knife. Can't hurt, might help, and in cases, for instance, like where there's the clip, having those separated is a good thing. With the case of the clip, it's kind of intuitive, right, that you'd have a longer screw in a certain position, but yeah. So my next step after this is going to be to take apart the G10 one. That's just to see basically what the internal differences are. I don't expect there to be many, but nonetheless, should be interesting. And given that I got both of these models, I figure, why not, right? Okay, so then let's go ahead and drop on this screw here. This is the shortest of them because it lives up here and it doesn't interface with the clip in any way. Okay, good. Now we find our clip. Our clip is here. This is a right side only clip because you would need a different clip for left side carry, but actually, it looks like you could probably... They might be able to make a left side clip for it because there's not any special milling or anything like that for where the clip goes. It's just a differently shaped piece of metal, so I don't know. I hate to do this to them, but you might ask. If you are of the sinister persuasion, it seems like it wouldn't be too hard to make a lefty clip for this guy, and the knife is otherwise fully ambidextrous, so could be. All right, tighten that down. Good, now we get to the pivot. Pivot, of course, being that T10. And this had some thread locker on it to start with. And I've reinstalled a little bit more. Very big, beefy old pivot here. Slide this into place. I don't know what tightness should look like for this, but we'll see. That's a little quicker. That's for damn sure. Oh, I didn't put any lubrication on the top side of this. So I'm just going to slip a little into that crack and kind of let it leach its way in as I move this back and forth. That'll work. Okay. There is no horizontal or vertical blade play. Knife opens and closes like a freaking dream. Okay, that was easy enough. Done. Let's pop open the green one, the G10 one over here, and we'll take a look-see and see where it's different, if anything. And this time I don't have to take off the front screws. At least I assume so. Okay, pop you off. There you go. A lot of people might ask, well, Nick, why did you buy two of them? Why on earth did you do that? Well, the quick answer is, well, a couple of things, actually. To start with, I'm able to. And that's thanks to my, well, my Patreon patrons who make it possible for me to say, you know what, Andrew, Demko, well, I'm sorry, Demko's. I believe it's a family enterprise at this point. I like your business. I want to support it. So let's just pick up both, and that way I can do a more thorough review. The second part is I do want to do a more thorough review, right? I'm interested in the titanium one. Actually, a buddy of mine, a guy named Ashton, has had a titanium AD-15 that I've been kind of low-key jealous of for a little while, because it's just ridiculous in the very best of ways, and so I wanted to check that out specifically, but I also figure the G10 is going to be a better solution for some folks. At least that was my initial impression. We'll see what my final impressions are. But nonetheless, I wanted to check out both sides, and I had the ability to, and at this point in time, you know, it's still, you know, it's July 18th. Uh-oh, here comes that. Now you'll be able to tell how long this has been in the backlog. You know, it's still a time in which I very much want to support small American businesses, right? And the Demkos are a small American business. So, yeah, why not, right? Seemed like win-win to me, although I now have two AD-15s. One of them I'll probably do like a pass-around for or something with some other reviewers or, you know, something like that, and then I'll probably end up selling one of them because, or maybe both, we'll see. But yeah, okay, so what we see here is that there is a weird little vestigial tab down here, which I don't fully understand. Maybe it's for locating within the G10, just add a little bit of extra strength. But aside from that, everything seems similar. When I compress this spring, it's probably going to eat itself, so let's go ahead and have it do that in a controlled manner. There we go. Good. And again, we have same bearing. At least it sure looks like the same bearing. A very similar bearing. Come on, pop off. Almost there. Yeah, come on. You can do it. Come on. There we go. All right, beautiful. So we clean and we reassemble. But yeah, we see partial liners in here and still running on bearings. Interesting, though. And again, I did the 20 CV on this one because I do like 20 CV a lot as a blade steel for me. And I didn't know which of these I wanted to keep, so I figured I'd do both that way. I did like the, you know, I don't know. It's weird. I'm in a weird place as a collector at this point. Like, oh, I'll buy two and see which one I like. I'm a very lucky man. That realization is never far from me. One thing to note is that there are no secondary washers inside here because these liners must be themselves made of steel. So that's cool. Clean that off. Clean off the pivot here. Wipe this area clean. Beautiful. Wipe the sides of this. Same unit from the looks of it. The little shocky dude. All right. And I think we are... Oh, gotta clean my bearings. Most people have to get their bearings. I gotta clean them, right? This is turning into a slightly longer review, or video, but I think it's important for people to be able to see both, especially if they're considering making this. Oh, the bearings are a little bigger, it looks like, on this guy. Probably a little bit more room. Okay. But it's important for people to be able to see both as they're trying to make a buying decision. Honestly, and I can kind of start in my first impressions a little bit already as I'm going here, but my biggest first impression is that this is cool. This is a cool knife. Both of them are very, very interesting. I like the locking mechanism so far. The one thing that I've had a little bit of trouble with, and I'm told that this will wear in a little bit, is actually a little bit of lock stick. If you really pop that guy open, there can be a little bit of stick there, and so that's something you want to keep in mind, I suppose. Although, like I said, it's been getting better and better on the titanium one as I've been flipping it more and more, so that's good. Let's go ahead and drop this in place. Let me lubricate the sides of this real quick. But yeah, aside from that, you know, that's... And, you know, the other thing to remember is that this is a big, beefy knife, right? You know, these days I'm really trying to focus on things that I suspect are going to be amazing. And indeed, I mean, these are awesome. But you know, part of that is I've been trying very hard not to get stuck in my own preferences, so to speak. Neither of these are knives that I'm particularly, like, they're not my style necessarily, but oh boy, there is something very compelling about them. So that's great. And plus, yeah, like I said, all of my interactions, you know, as a reviewer, I'll keep going as I rant here. Oh, hey, there was a very important thing I missed there. Observant ones yelling at the screen. What am I missing? That's right, the spring. Yeah, otherwise this would not be nearly as effective of a pocket knife. Let's put the spring back in. Actually, still cut things fine. It'd just be the whole lock and unlocking thing that wouldn't happen. Let's pop you down in there. Oh, no, you're trying to eat yourself out of there, aren't you? There we go. Yep, got it. Haha. All right, beautiful. So, one of the things that has come up is, you know, as you travel in knife circles, so to speak, as you talk to reviewers, as you talk to, you know, folks, manufacturers, etc. Yeah, after a while, you start to hear about people, right? You start to hear people saying things like, oh, yeah, so-and-so's a great guy. Oh, you may want to avoid so-and-so. They're kind of a pain. You know, you hear those stories, and the Demkos, Andrew Demko specifically, but just generally, have been, you know, everybody kind of says nice things about him. And that's yet another thing I want to support, right? There are too many jerks in the world, too many bullies, too many ugly, you know, let's support some good folks. Right? So, you know, and maybe you've had a bad experience. I don't know. I'm just one guy, and all of my experiences meeting them have been, like, nice. But then again, I'm kind of a fanboy, so it's like, if they're not nice to their fanboys, then... Well, actually, there are people who aren't nice to their fans, so that's a thing, too. But anyways, that's yet another joy of, you know, supporting, you know, smaller makers, so to speak. But okay, let's go ahead and pop these pivot into here. My first impressions, though, are resoundingly positive. You know, it's a weird knife, 100%. It's a weird locking mechanism. And, you know, I suspect that for many people, the extra strength benefits are going to be largely wasted because, you know, dude, is the AD-20 not strong enough for you? I mean, is any frame lock not strong enough for you? Blade locking, lock strength is always felt like one of those debates that's more academic and sort of, well, shall we say, measuring objects than anything. But nonetheless, strong. And let's go ahead, and what I'm doing here is just loosening up those a little bit to make sure everything sort of, yeah, there we go. Now we're recentered, because the pivot wasn't in when I tightened everything down tight. Beautiful, and beautiful, and beautiful. And we should now be... no blade play in either direction. Smoother action, actually. Beautiful. We are all set. So, yeah, like I said, now in a more concerted effort here to give you cohesive impressions, let me put away some of these things. Like I said, my first impressions are generally positive. I took these guys out of the box, and my very first thought, actually, this is the first one I took out. My first thought is, oh, this is stupid, and I love it. That's kind of that's a thing to say that I don't intend to be mean, but it's sort of, this knife especially is patently ridiculous. The full titanium one, this is more knife than I will ever need, likely during my entire life, right? The beefitude of this is off the charts. It's borderline ridiculous in some ways, in most ways, actually. And that's charming with it, right? Big, full slabs of titanium, big, thick blade stock. It still comes down to a relatively thin edge in the middle there, although there's not that much distal taper, so the tip is a little bit on the beefy, strong side. But the action on it is great. I mean, you can just feel it. That's great. The shock lock itself, my feelings are very positive. It's like, that's kind of a cool lock. You have the option of using the thumb stud, flicking it out, or just pulling back. Oh, there's a little of that lock stick I was telling you about, actually. Whew. That was especially something. When you really flick it out good, I've noticed that can be a factor. So let's go ahead and pop that loose. There we go. Just needed a little extra beef there. Like I said, apparently that's something that sorts itself out over time. But still, that's definitely sticky. It makes sense, I guess. If this piece is titanium here, then, you know, titanium on steel can occasionally have lock stick. I suppose I could use a Sharpie on that. That'd be weird, but why not? Most of the time, though, it's not really a factor. So this guy is kind of completely ridiculous. And in terms of size, I mean, it's huge, too. I mean, we're coming in here at over, like, 3.75, well, probably like 3.6 or something inches there. And the weight on it is, shall we say, non-trivial here. The full tie version comes in at 7.6 ounces, as opposed to the G10 version coming in at 6.1 ounce. Neither of these are going to be, you know, thin and svelte and whatnot, but at the same time, yeah, the titanium is definitely a little bit more on the redonkulous side. The texturing on it is actually quite nice. It's beefy, it's grippy, but it's not so hard. It's not like terrible gripping into your pocket. In terms of the on the G10 side, actually, this texture combined with the pocket clip is a little much. This texture could use to be smoothed down a little bit, and I might well actually smooth out, wearing a respirator, of course, a little bit of the texturing under the clip there, because that's a little much. But honestly, I like these knives. These are really cool. Do I get the stick on this guy as much? Maybe not. Interesting. But anyways, let's Either way, it's situational. I'm going to give these guys some more carry and see whether my ideas persist here. But at some level, there's a charm here. And for me personally, I think the titanium one might be the one that ends up sticking around just because of its ridiculousness, right? It's like, its exoticness comes exactly from its beefitude, right? And so, but although I would certainly admit that I think for most people, this would be a more practical everyday carry option. And I think in terms of overall strength, both of them will be roughly equivalent. Is the tie? Yeah, the tie is a little thinner in the pocket. That's interesting. I just noticed that. Neat. But yeah, so anyways, those are my first impressions. Overall, quite positive. They are pricey, by the way. I want to say this guy, what were the prices here? You'll want to check with your local retailer on prices. I have forgotten those things already, but that's okay. I want to say we're in the 4 to 5 range and the 6 to 7 range on the Thai version here. But anyways, yeah, those are my impressions. Hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.